Hey everybody, welcome to the Tattoos with Intention podcast. I'm Mark, and in today's episode, we have a bit of a different format. We're not doing the usual interview with an artist or client. Instead, this is intended as a half-yearly update, and I'm planning to introduce you to a project that's been developing in the background, which is the founding of Tattoo Pathway, an education and research institute, and the coursework that we've been developing. And I'll be talking with Taylor Deakin King, who's joined me for an interview on this podcast before. It was about her own tattoo journey, and that was back in October, episode 14. And since then, she's taken on the role of research lead on the small Tattoo Pathway team. So we've been working steadily to get the fundamentals course up and running, and it will be available this month. So if you're interested in knowing what we are about and what we're doing, then keep listening. So what is the Tattoo Pathway?
I would say we're an education and research institute. So we have this dual focus with our work that ultimately falls under the one umbrella of wanting to connect people to the transformational power of tattooing consciously. So that's our mission at the Tattoo Pathway. And I think that feeds through our two focus areas of education and research.
The research is new, and it's like the main area that's brought you into the team, right? Because prior to the Tattoo Pathway, it's just been my observation with people that I'm tattooing. And that's what formulated the initial course offering back in 2020.
I guess that work that you were doing is a form of research in itself, right? It's like that empirical research based on the lived experience of people through observation and conversation. And I think that the research is building on that and formalizing that more and expanding that reach, but it's still grounded in the lived experience of people to understand what tattooing is and what it does. And I guess I like to think of it as linked in with the lived experience of people, because it's not just based on theory and hypothesis. We're gaining like real-time information that's supporting us to have that understanding and expand on it.
Yeah. It becomes very legitimate because there's all of these different concepts that are, say, in the coursework that you've already done and the stuff that we've been currently editing and putting together for the next course, where I just see things on repeat. It's almost like there's particular scripts that people are running within their tattoos, and then that has a result. So lots of patterns, but I'm not recording anything. I'm not writing anything down. It's just in my memory bank, and I guess in my experience with people I'm working with. And so that makes me curious to whether the patterns exist on a bigger scale. That's why I started doing this podcast and talking to people. It's like, are other artists experiencing this with their clients? Does everyone that get tattooed, do they all have a similar template? And so I'm hoping that by having a larger volume of people going through and participating in what it is that we're putting out, we'll be able to, work out whether these things are accurate or not.
Exactly. And there's this really great quote that I won't be able to quote because I can't remember it fully, by Carl Jung, which talks about the individual is the true carrier of reality, as opposed to these like statistical averages that so much of society is based on. So you think so much information is given to us based on how the average person learns, or how the average this happens. And I think what we're looking for is the reality of experiences that, to your point, continually show up across people, which may present fundamental and intrinsic truths of what tattooing is. And that so nicely ties in with the education component, because then that can be used to make tailored resources to support people in whatever way that they engage with tattooing.
Yeah, an interesting correlation there. The average part. Can't remember who I
Mhm,
was talking to about it. One of our concepts is that tattoos are inherently meaningful, right?
mhm.
There's like this meaningful component of a tattoo, and it needs to correlate to living a meaningful life, right? But the mean is also the average. The mean of your tattoos is the average
Mhm.
of all of your tattoos. So it's a bit of wordplay, but when you just allow them to blur a bit in your mind and you go into it, if you average out all of your tattoos experiences and what they do mean, you start to get a clearer picture of what it is that your tattoos are presenting to the world. And and then on that larger scale, what is tattooing to everyone at the moment? I got an idea of what it is to me, and so do you. But once we start getting people involved and we can form that picture up a little bit more, work out what it is. That listen to this, not that there's heaps of listeners. I think there's a couple of hundred that listen to it regularly, so it's not massive. But for people that do listen to it, my voice is kind of familiar. Yours might be familiar because we did an interview in October, episode 14, I think it is. So for people that are listening and want to get more of a context for Taylor's own tattoo process, she shares a fair bit in that episode, and we'll link it in. But for now, to give people an introduction to yourself and what it is that you're doing in the tattoo pathway, like what your role is and that sort of thing. What's your experience with tattooing? What's your background with study as well prior to coming on board here? What do you see for the pathway, like immediately in regards to what it is we've been working on, hopes for where it might go, all of those sorts of things.
Yeah, that's a good place to start.
Hmm.
So, my experience with tattooing, as you shared, I've discussed in that previous episode, but I first started getting tattooed when I was 15 and
Mhm.
have been doing so for 15 years since. And so I'm not a tattoo artist. I don't give tattoos. I've been on the receiving end of tattooing. And I've had my own journey of how I've engaged with that. Those initial phases of not really thinking much about tattoo design or placement or what it actually means, just feeling like really called to get a tattoo, sometimes on a whim, and going and getting that done. And I guess over the years, as my own level of self inquiry and inquiry about the bigger picture has developed, there's been a draw to understanding how tattooing is located within that, both for myself and my life. And there was quite a pivotal shift that occurred when I did do the course back in 2020. So I think it was the 7 principles of tattooing back then. And I would say from that point in 2020, the journey I've had with tattooing and the relationship I have had has changed significantly from prior that point.
Yeah, so you've come in from the place where most people would find themselves, which is navigating tattooing with zero guidance and the kind of common prescription where it's art and you got to go to tattoo shops and they're all kind of separate. And it's unfolded for you, and we've gone into some coursework together, and it's developed a long way since then. And now we're here, and you're actually helping to expand that information and I guess give a little bit of guidance to people that, like ourselves, have already been getting tattooed and don't really know where to go with it or what their relationship is with tattooing. It's such a strange
Mhm,
thing, hey. I was thinking about it yesterday because I was tattooing someone. And again, the more and more I do it and the more I consider all of these little pieces of information within the tattoo pathway coursework that we focus on, I'm seeing more patterns. And one of them
mhm,
is that people don't know what they're actually trying to achieve with tattooing either. There's no target. It just is. So you start
mhm,
tattooing and then you can almost develop this like hungry ghost, so to speak, where you just, like with everything else, you start just getting more tattoos and it just could just go infinitely till your whole body's covered in tattoos and you don't even know why. And you're further away from understanding anything than you were at the start of the process. That's the issue at hand. It's like you get one,
Yeah.
"Oh, now I'm working out what tattooing is," and you get another one, "Oh, I think I want another one." There was something about that I liked. People talk about it being addictive, and they don't even really know why, and no one's there giving them any sort of pace that they should be taking it at. And obviously, this is, like, quite a contemporary issue. It's not something that was, I think, found in the past, so to speak, and it's not isolated to just tattooing either, which is one of the other big
Hmm.
themes of what we're trying to emphasize and highlight through the tattoo pathway, through this education, through this research, is that a lot of these concepts aren't isolated. Tattooing shouldn't be an isolated concept from the reality of what your life is and who you are and how you do everything, right? So another example would be, think about sneakers. Like, how many pairs of shoes do you need, really? And what are they for? But we're in this consumer culture. People just, again, the hungry ghost thing. They'll just keep buying shoes. And then when you merge into the realm of spiritual development, spirituality, the same thing comes in. The commerce comes in, the tourism comes in. So it goes from, I'm going to make a drum, quite a common path of learning, and it's endowed with lots of teachings and relevance. And there is a layer of spiritual development that can come from engaging with a lot of these pathways. But then it's like, I've got 5 drums, 6 drums, and now I'm going to teach people to make drums. And people just run away with it. And then once they've gorged themselves so much that they're overly full with it, they just drop it and start munching on the next thing. And I guess part of this whole work is to set up a healthy boundary, and really it's one that's self-enforced. Like, we're not enforcing anything for people, we're just introducing them to something.
Some of the things that I think of with what you've just shared is the consumer culture is almost like running on the hamster wheel kind of thing. And so often you don't even have awareness that you're running on the hamster wheel. So recently I've been doing the mapping exercise myself, and I've just revealed all of these different tattoo inquiries that I was sending out to people that I don't even remember doing. And it was almost like every month I was sending out an inquiry to a different tattoo artist, and was, on reflection, very evidently trying to build up a specific kind of identity and to be seen in a specific way and build this protective armor to hide who I was. But I wasn't even conscious of that. And so I
And
wasn't
you're
seeing
wrong.
tattooing for what tattooing is and what it does. I was seeing it as a tool to serve like quite a self-serving purpose, which was
Yes.
to build this identity that I needed and I wanted. And so I think like the shift in stepping away from the consumer culture of entitlement and selfishness begins with awareness. Awareness that you're participating in it, awareness of what you're doing, and awareness of what you actually want from yourself and from your life, which is what you were sharing. Is so many people don't even know why they're doing it. And I just think that links in so much with the education side of what we're doing, is trying to connect people to an awareness and share what we're learning and what we're participating in, so people have an awareness of what they're actually participating in when they're giving or receiving a tattoo.
Totally. And what I think that reveals, and this is really important. So if you're listening and you're going like, okay, what are they educating us on? Or what are they researching? And you're trying to get your head around it. Recently, I've come to see it as less of a, we're putting something together for people to do, which is what tattooing has been in the past. It's been this thing that's been like established and curated for people within a certain community context, cultural context. For us and what we're doing here, it's like a reverse of that. We're having to break down and undo what it is that isn't prescribed to us and we're all participating in, So it's almost the opposite. And from that, from being able to like actually take a breath and pay attention and not think we know what it is and look at it, maybe there'll be something within that, this is what we're hopeful of, that is a underlying pattern, like this deep subconscious pattern of what tattooing actually is. And we can highlight that. We can move away all of the stuff that's distracting and clogging it up, get all the plaque off this thing, and reveal its substance that is highly beneficial, that's just there. And once I had that little shift, it was really useful to, again, move away from the tattooing practice I have. And so that's another thing I think is important to emphasize here with what it is. The coursework that the Tattoo Pathway is putting out, it's not, here's what I do with people and how I tattoo, me, Mark. And it's not, if you're an artist, this is how you can go out and tattoo people. That's why Taylor, that's why you're part of this. That's why Jurish is part of this team. That's why there'll probably be other people involved, because it's actually for people that are getting tattooed. It's for the majority of people. The tattooist is like a little isolated person, and there's lots of individual aspects around what they do, but then everybody's getting tattooed. And so this is
Mm-hmm.
an inquiry into that side of it, getting people to look at their own tattoos, their own relationship with tattooing, and what that broader context of tattooing currently is.
Yeah. And I think you made a really good point when you shared around it's like the stripping back. I read recently something along the lines of truth is found in removal, not adding. And I think that removing process allows what it is to reveal itself. And that's some of what we're sharing through our education component of the Tattoo Pathway and the course is some of the things that you've noticed for the past however many years, and I've also participated in the last 5, that have revealed itself. And so we're sharing that with people. And the research component is looking at that on scale of what is naturally revealing itself.
Yeah,
And I think
yeah,
there's something in that, which is, I guess, reiterating what you just said. It is connecting to the essence of what tattooing is and allows us then to know what we're
participating
in.
yeah,
And I think that does create meaning within receiving and giving tattoos. But to your point earlier, it's not isolated. That then is intrinsically linked with your whole life.
yep, it is. It's almost like breaking something down so that you can put it back together in a way that's clearer and more significant. And so one of our pillars, we've got 7 pillars at the pathway, and one of them is spiritual wisdom. And so that's one of the things that's revealed when you start to strip away all of the non-essentials and all of the noise with tattooing. It's innately a spiritual and significant act to mark your skin. But our coursework and what we're doing with the education side of things and the research side of things is we're not trying to prop ourselves up as some spiritual lighthouse. We're not trying to say that we're prescribing any spiritual processes or anything like that. It's basically just helping people get things out of the way that are blocking them from having that natural realization and relationship open up and present itself to them in whatever form that is. The reason why tattooing is a significant act within many different cultures of spiritual significance is because formulated it prior to any of the residue that we have to deal with from the globalized world and the industrialized world and all of the different bits and pieces. That's why it's so clean in those cultures. And so we're not trying to recreate anything. We're simply trying to remove what it is that's blocking us from our tattoos having that type of correlation to our life.
Yeah. And I guess some of the language that we've used that comes to mind is this idea of being in the river of current culture and current tattoo culture. And it
Mm.
begins with bringing awareness to the fact that you're in the river and that there is another way. There is
Yeah.
another way to participate that isn't how we're currently doing it. And speaking of our pillars, and I think this is also partly what the course does, it's cultivating this awareness of what you're participating in and that there can be more. And so you start moving from this place of unknown and ignorance. I didn't even know what I was participating in before, and now starting to get some ideas of what you are. And the course speaks to that both through theoretical knowledge, like learning a little bit about the history of tattooing and your relationship with your tattoos and setting intention, but applied practice as well. So there's some ways to really translate that into your everyday life and really actioning that. And so that expansion of awareness, you start moving into an understanding and knowing from the unknown to the known. And that comes with our first pillar, self responsibility as well.
That's right.
And I just
Yep.
see, yeah, I see that shift as well. The course is also supporting people to move into a place of taking responsibility for the tattoos that they're getting, the direction that has on their life or on their tattoo journey.
Yeah, it's big stuff. It's big stuff. It blows me away actually that there isn't an in-depth look at this yet. It's like everybody's doing it. Everyone's getting pictures drawn of themselves all over the place and with not a whole lot of thought. Anyway, Taylor, what's your background with study and research and all of that anyway? For people that are listening, it's okay. This is Taylor, another voice to get used to because you'll probably be doing some interviews on this podcast with other people in that sort of research area as well. But what qualifies you to be the lead researcher at Tattoo Pathway?
Sure. I guess like formal qualifications. I started with a Bachelor of Commerce and I majored in management. So it was looking a lot at why business is the way it is and the way people show up in business. And I guess, yeah, it was really looking at why and how things work the way they do. And that required lots of writing of papers, lots of research to write those papers. And then I really took an interest in society and people and why people are living their lives the way they are. And I was really drawn to an international context. So I studied my Master's of Science in International Development and Emerging Economies. And that was a lot of work, a lot of research,
I
a lot
bet.
of writing, and was, yeah, really driven by my curiosity to understand the world and people. And I guess in my personal life, I am very interested in learning still, but not just in relation to theory and the external world, but also where I'm located within that and what my responsibilities are in life to move forward in a way that is generative, as we often talk about, and good and true. And so the work with the tattoo pathway as a research lead really nicely blends my formal education that had quite an academic research writing based to it with my personal interest and values.
Yeah, it's like that active curiosity and then the academic side is so
Yes.
useful. And it's been useful already. Like, how long have you been editing the coursework now? It's like nearly 6 months or more.
Yeah, so we would have started in Jan. We're in June. So
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
6 months.
Yeah. Yeah. And so the course that you initially did in 2020, now that I think about it, comparatively to what it is that we're putting together at the moment, was pretty, I wouldn't say rough, but it wasn't academic level. I
Hmm.
just skimmed
Well,
through university. Like I failed art history in my first year, had to resit it so I could graduate on time. And so that first course was me like yeah, getting some of the things down that we've already spoken about and more. And also because it was the first time I tried to actually extrapolate this thinking, it was
Mhm.
I felt like I had to get it all there. And so
Mhm.
we've revisited it. When I asked you to come on board and help out, we started looking at what was there. And the initial course was 7 principles, right? We had relationships, intention, the sacred, mapping, programs and purpose, tattoo time, integration. They were the
Mhm.
7 principles we did. This time, we got the fundamentals course, which I feel like is so much more information than that first one, and we've
Mhm.
only gone into the first 3 principles. We've stretched them out. We got, like, what, 5 chapters in it.
And I guess if I reflect on, because I did the first course, it was really valuable and there was a lot of information to
Yeah,
take on board. And each principle has a lot in it. And so I think where you receive most value is when you can really go into each of those. And
yeah,
that's something that we've done this time round through reviewing it. And I've shared this with you. The words that came to mind for me when reviewing the course is distillation and refinement. So, distillation was this extraction of the purest and most essential elements. And then the refinement was the process of improving that for clarification. So, really building that out to make sure people could understand what we're actually talking about in that specific lesson. So, in some ways, it's less principles, but deeper into each.
yeah. I think it's way clearer this time around, hey, because the articulation of each principle now, I think, is a lot simpler and expanded upon because there was a lot of back and forth. You were just going like, "Well, can you explain this a bit more?" And I'm like, "Okay, um, I'll explain that a bit more." Not thinking that it needed to be explained more, and then it's obviously a lot clearer on the other side of that. I think it's been working well. How do you think it's gonna add value to someone that goes through the course? How did the course add value to you the first time, and what are you sort of anticipating from this one?
Well, I think the course is applicable to many people. When you start getting to a place in your own life when you're curious about what you're participating in and the direction that you're going, and if you have tattoos or if you're interested in tattoos, naturally, this course will support with that journey. So if I apply it to myself before the course, I was drawn to tattooing and I knew it meant something significant. Otherwise, I wouldn't be marking my body permanently. But I didn't really know why I was doing it or the impact of getting a tattoo or the significance of how that interrelated with my life. And so I think for people now who would be doing the course, they would receive a comprehensive amount of information that's still fundamental. So it's easy to engage with and comprehend to actually start engaging with and understanding your tattoos and tattooing in a meaningful way and in a way that answers some really common questions that people come into contact with tattooing. Like, I'm sure lots of people have had an experience around, I want to get a tattoo that's meaningful. How do I do that? The course speaks to
Right.
that. Or I have a
Yep.
tattoo that I regret and I feel discontent with. Why is that the case? How do I go about that? The course can speak to that. And it provides these really practical steps as well as cognitive understanding, so theoretical knowledge, to support people engage with tattooing in a way so that they receive these meaningful tattoos that I would say most people do want and are being
Yeah.
called towards, but just don't know how. They don't have that guidance.
Yeah, yeah. Like we were saying earlier, that the boundary's just not there. So the course ends up being a little bit of a reverse engineering of what a lot of people are already participating in. And from that angle, I think about future potentials at Tattoo Pathway, where we've spoken about it, maybe a pilot program that we can run at schools,
Mm.
trying to lay some of the foundations down for people prior to engaging with tattoos so that there is a framework before you get tattooed at all, and you can hopefully mitigate some of the work that I'm having to undo, you've had to undo. You've got cover ups, I've got cover ups. It seems to be pretty
Yeah,
common once you get these bits of information, hey, that there's things where you're just like, oh, that's doesn't feel right now, doesn't fit anymore, you know?
totally. I actually do think the course, whilst is very beneficial to people who have tattoos, it actually would be really beneficial to people who don't have tattoos, who are interested in embarking on that journey that has significance and meaning. It's actually a
Mm,
really great opportunity for people who are just beginning their journey with tattooing. But the other thing that I forgot to mention that I think is really significant about the course is that it's also supportive in learning more about yourself because your
yeah,
tattoos hold so much information about who you are, your past, the choices you've made to get to now and where you might be heading. And that's really significant when you are someone who is looking to know who you are and to move forward in life in a particular way. And I think the
yeah.
course really does help with that.
I mean, there's the new element of this course, which we didn't have last time, which is just huge at tracking that and segues us into the research part is the app, right? Tattoo Pathway team, as it stands, is myself and Taylor and my beloved wife, Jirish, and we have a potential team member, Louisa. She's on trial at the moment. We'll see whether she joins the team. But Jirish, she's wearing a lot of hats for the team at the moment. Hey, Taylor, what is she like?
Yeah.
Digital marketing extraordinaire. I don't even know.
Operations.
Yeah,
Yeah.
she's doing a
Like
lot
chief
as well as
operations officer.
yeah, as well as dealing with me and the kids and all of that sort of stuff. She's doing amazing, but she put to us halfway through editing the course that maybe we could use an application to assist in one of the main exercises of the pathway, which is mapping. And like you were just saying, Taylor, that process alone, in terms of learning about yourself, is of extremely high value and you can go so far with it. And so, for anyone that does jump on board and participate in our fundamentals course, which will be up soon, links in the end of the show notes and that sort of thing, you get access to this application, which we're calling it the Tattoo Pathway Journal. And it's new, so we're still working it out ourselves. But the exercise is something that isn't new. We did it on paper from the first course. Like myself and you, Taylor, we've been mapping our tattoos now for 4 years,
Yeah.
and I still haven't got through mine. I'm about halfway through my tattoos. 4 years.
Yeah. Yeah. I went on an intensive the past few months and I've got around 4 or 5 left. But that's when you're approaching it with sincerity and a curiosity, sometimes taking time with it is good as well, to come to it for a bit, take a break, come to it and let it unfold.
Yeah, and the mapping exercise is going to act as one of the main sources, I suppose, for our research. Is that right? You're the head of the research. You tell me. I guess that's where we're going to
Yes, it
gain a
is.
lot of insight.
Yeah, so with the research, there's the mapping component of it. And the reason that's so significant personally to an individual, but also to the research side of Tattoo Pathway is because that is looking at the various layers of information that are held within an individual tattoo, their relationship with other tattoos and the relationship with that person's life. So that's where we really start getting what we were talking about before, these patterns emergent in the lived experience of people through tattooing. So
Yeah.
mapping is really rich in that area. And that's why it's just such a deep, profound tool to use for yourself. And then the other part of the research is our survey questions as well, where we're starting to look into and probe a little bit deeper into the patterns that we've observed so far to just get more understanding and more information to see how that shows up at scale.
And is the survey accessible yet? Is that up there on the
Yeah.
page? I'm not sure.
Yes. So it's on our website
Yep.
on the research page. For anybody doing the course as well, we'll have our intake questionnaire, which will be looking at some of that information as well. And what I'd say about the survey, whether you're doing it just not as someone doing the course, just doing it because you want to participate, or whether you are doing it with the course, it not only contributes to creating a collective understanding of what tattooing is and does, which is something that we can share through tailored resources, whether that be courses, free resources, podcasts, and so forth. But it's actually, because of the nature of the questions, it's an interesting exercise to do for yourself as a beginning point to reflect on and contemplate your relationship and journey with your own tattoos. It may
Yeah.
ask you questions that people haven't considered about their own tattoos before. And so it is a really great beginning point to start engaging with your tattoos in a meaningful way.
Another thing that's important to highlight for whoever's listening, the main aim and the main motivation that's pointing us there isn't an us thing. We're not trying to collect data for ourselves. We're not trying to put all of this stuff up to get data from people. The course is there because it's highly valuable things for anyone that's getting tattooed. The questionnaire is the same. It's just to get your mind going, to get the wheels turning in a different way to how they're currently spinning, probably. It's just to start to break down what it is that you think tattoos already are and to start seeing it differently. Highly valuable. And the research part of it, it's opt in, opt out. We have the option there for people that are open to it and feel like they want to contribute to do the surveys and have information involved in our anonymous collection. But you don't have to either. Like, I totally get that. If you want to contribute or not.
Yeah, your point around the research and the education, but especially the research not being about us, I bring it back to our mission and vision statement, being part of the team. I personally believe in that so much and align with that as a value of the mission being to connect people to the transformational power of tattooing consciously. As someone who's experienced that myself, and I still see myself as a student and learning, it has been transformational. And so I am genuinely passionate and feel so blessed to be part of this team to get to share that with people who want that. And our vision of creating a tattoo pathway that is sacred for future generations. I am so
Yeah.
connected to that and believe in that. So when you were just sharing about it being focused on other people, I just feel that so deeply and wanted to reinforce that.
So, like, for anyone listening, where if you've stayed with us for this long, doing well, you can head to the website. There's a really nice website, thanks to team member Jirish, that has everything really well formatted and articulated that we've been ranting about. So you can have a look through it. And I suppose the pathway that's there for you is initially at the smallest layer, you can do that survey. You can do that survey. You can think about your tattoos different. And you can choose to share that with us to see what patterns form. From that, you can use the tattoo pathway journal. You can use the app and you can participate in mapping your tattoos. That's something that we're pulling out of the course as a isolated option for people. So if you're not ready to jump into the course, but you can understand a little bit about what we're saying, you're curious, you want to know what's going on with your tattoos, you can use that app and you can start mapping your tattoos. And then soon, maybe even by the time this is up, hopefully, the fundamentals course will be available. I'll be taking a group of people through it. I think initially, just the first round, I'll take people through the course with live check-ins each week, just to make sure everything is running smoothly and to iron anything out and gather some FAQs to put in, and then it will just be up for anyone to go through without my involvement. It's meant to be able to just hold itself up there and add value to people. And then off the back of that, Taylor, if it all is successful and doing something in the world, there'll be another course because we've got the other 4 principles to go through. I don't know how that's going to look, but
which is super exciting.
yeah, I guess we started talking about it the other day. Hey, we'll
Yeah.
see
Yeah.
what happens there.
Yeah. And I think there's a lot to receive from the fundamentals course to begin with. And there's a lot of information there to engage with and to allow to integrate. So even that as just that entry point is really great for people.
Anything else we
Yeah.
need to put out there?
The course.
Do the course. Yeah, I'm just excited actually for anyone that does do it without any
Me
attachment or
too.
expectation. I think the first time there was maybe 30 people, and then I ran it twice, maybe all up there was like, I don't know, 50 people that went through it. And it was varied in terms of how people came out the other side of it. Everybody saw their tattoos different. Some people made them drop in really deeply. I think some people were blown apart and moved away from their tattoos as well. But I think this time, how we've approached it, it's much softer and more digestible, which is why I'm excited about it. I think I didn't do it for such a long time afterwards because I had apprehension there after how big the impact was of the first one for people. Whereas this one, I think it's just like this nice, soft little offering, and it'll be easy for people to get into.
I agree. And I'm
Yes.
also really, really excited.
Oh, there's lions breaking into the backyard. Okay, thanks for your time, Taylor, and thanks everybody that's listened for your time. And yeah, we'll catch you all on the podcast later. So all the links that we've mentioned are below. On the website, you can read through all our tattoo pathway pillars, our vision and mission statement. You can read about myself, Taylor, Jirish, meet the team. You can see why and what we are doing in terms of the research arm. And there's also the option to participate in that by doing the survey. And in terms of the course, there's a very solid breakdown of each chapter and what they're about. So if you want to be first in line for the fundamentals course, then please join the waitlist. Like I said, it will be up very, very soon by the end of the month. My apologies to those of you who have been hanging on the sideline wanting to get into it. I promise the extra time and care that we've put in will be evident. And the bonus of being in this first round is that I'll be checking in with everybody weekly through a video call and just answering people's questions and giving some feedback. So if you want that group interaction with myself and whoever else is doing the course, then this is the time to do it. And in the first couple of courses we ran all those years ago, the group container was a really special part of the experience. And so for that same reason, I'm probably going to limit the amount of people that come through the first round because it's hard to have a big online group that meets everyone's needs. I hope you enjoyed listening to me and Taylor talk about the tattoo pathway and that you feel like joining us. And please let anyone know that you think or you feel might find it useful or of interest to do the course or to participate in the research. And we'll catch you next month.